Let's see what's out there.
Hello and welcome to Let's See What's Out There, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Picard Season 2, which is available to watch on Amazon Prime and Paramount Plus. I'm Keith Isles, and as ever I am joined by
Pete Mealy.
And we are both film and TV enthusiasts, and today we are going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around episode 3 of season 2, titled Assmilation. So, how you doing, Pete? You good?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And you?
Yeah. We are a day later than normal doing this because there was Apple had some issues when we went to actually do this the first time round. So I don't know about you. I feel like I'm playing catch up a little bit today, Pete.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but you know what? We're actually doing this on a very important day because when this is going to be put up this afternoon, it is the 22nd of March, 2022. And this is actually William Shatner's 91st birthday. So there you go. Happy birthday, William Shatner. You're here on my mug, along with the other captains. And there you go, 91 today. Scary, eh?
Yeah. And by extension, it is then the pre-birthday of Jim Kirk, right? Because they gave him the same day.
Indeed. And that brings me very nicely too. I know you're like me, Pete. You and I, we try and avoid too much what's going on in the news just so that we can actually have a pure experience and enjoy the episodes when they air, and try not to look at any reviews until we've done this, not to be sort of swayed or anything. And likewise, try not to watch trailers, etc., because I don't want spoilers. However, we live in a world where you can't get away from the news nowadays, and we would not be a good Star Trek show if we weren't talking about things that have come up recently. And the elephant in the room this week announced that actor Paul Wesley is apparently playing. A lot of us thought it might be Matt Decker, but it's turned out that the news has revealed that he's going to be playing James T. Kirk in Strange New Worlds. I just wondered, how do you feel about that, Pete?
It actually makes me a little nervous because, I think we've had talks about how prequels can sort of tie themselves in and box themselves in. And I think that the more of the original series characters that get cast in this show, the more restrictive the show is gonna, or the more constraints the show is gonna be under. And so I had heard a rumor. I haven't looked into this. I'm sorry, but that like Uhura was cast as well. And we know that Ethan Peck is coming back as Spock. And now we've got a Kirk, and all I can think is, you're cutting off stories that you can tell by assigning characters who already have a history. And so unless you're going to split off another universe or something, you're limiting yourself. And so that's depressing for me. I really wish that, I feel like Pike, there was a small amount of stuff. And so if you say to me, like, we're going to do a Pike TV show, I go, sure, there's a lot of content there you can mine. You're a little bit hemmed in because everyone knows how Pike ends up. And so there's no real risk to Captain Pike because you already know how his storyline ends in 2 different universes. But now that we have Kirk and Spock was always going to be sort of a weak link, right? Because there's so much about him. It feels like a step backwards, but I don't want to prejudge anything until I see the actual piece. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your and I feelings are quite similar, I think, in so much as likewise, I'm sort of willing to to deal with this when it comes and take it for what it is. It does make me slightly nervous though, because I was hoping that Strange New Worlds would be, the Captain Pike show, and obviously we've already had now 3 versions of Pike and Spock, yeah. And this will be our 3rd iteration of Captain Kirk. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Paul Wesley, I know he's famous for the Vampire Diaries, which is not actually a show that I've watched, so I'm not particularly familiar with his work. Looking at that photograph there, I mean, he looks the part, which is great. I mean, I'm stunned to see that he's actually 39 years old. So Kirk at this point in the timeline would be, in his sort of mid-20s. So
Yeah.
but I guess if you look the part, then that's not an issue so much. But we're only just over a decade on from having Chris Pine in the role, and again, if one listens to news, Chris Pine may be continuing the role in Star Trek movies, but yeah, a 3rd iteration now of Kirk and bringing him into that sort of time period before the original series. Yeah, it's slightly troubling, but let's see what they do with it, I guess. So, as I said, looking at him, we've got an image there of Chris Pine and William Shatner, both as Kirk in their gold tops, and there Paul Wesley sat on the bridge of the Enterprise. It looks like, unless that's maybe that's the Farragut or one of the other ships that he was supposed to be on. Who knows? But
yeah, that's the other thing that sort of bums me out, right? Is that he wasn't supposed to be on Pike's Enterprise. And
maybe he won't be. To be fair, maybe he won't be. We'll see how they do with this. I'm always willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Fandom is a very funny thing, because I notice this, not just with Star Trek, but with Star Wars as well. We're in this big galaxy with loads of stories that can be told, but we do gravitate back to certain time periods and certain characters and love to do it. And it's kind of, we're sort of the problem as well as the solution, if that makes sense, because on one hand we're saying, don't contaminate what's already there and all of this, but on the other hand, we can't help ourselves. We love seeing our legacy characters. We love to have those gaps filled in, and it looks like they're going to get to a point where there are no gaps in any of the franchise's timeline. There's none of those lost years anymore. They're all going to be filled, albeit with obviously with different actors. But anyway, we're 10 minutes in, and I realize I've derailed us already by talking about some news. So let's get on and get into the show and engage.
Okay. Cover blown, our Space 7 wrestle the guns from the Confederation thugs after they shoot Elnor and neutralize the threats. They try to run away. Q pops up to say something witty. The Borg Queen escapes her containment field, jacks into the ship, and does the time jump. But she's taken too much power, and Picard has to guide La Sirena in for a crash landing. Without power, they can't save Elnor, and he dies in Raffi's arms, giving her his prized medallion. His prized medallion that they've never talked about. Alternate joke. Where can you get Tribble blood in 2024? Anyway, Jurati, Picard, and Rios unhook the Borg Queen, but keep her alive. Raffi has an emotional moment, railing against Picard, Q, and the death of Elnor. Jurati and Picard stay with the ship to work on the Borg Queen. Jurati decides to hack the Borg Queen brain by plugging herself in, gets the information they need, and restores the Borg Queen to somewhat working order. Her subconscious mind will stay active, so Picard will talk directly to Jurati's subconscious to make sure she isn't fully assimilated and pull the plug if it gets bad. And after some quote-unquote acting, Picard pulls the plug, the Borg Queen is awake and smug, but Jurati was successful and has the information, which impresses the Borg Queen. With a quick warning about butterflies and timelines, Raffi, Rios, and Seven beam to Los Angeles to find the Watcher. Raffi and Seven beam in okay, but Rios beams in 15 feet above the ground and has a hard drop. Raffi gets mugged, but she quickly turns the situation around, walks away with some 21st century currency. Raffi and Seven wrangle their way to the top of the tallest building in Los Angeles and scan for the Watcher. Quick blip of something, but then it's gone. Meanwhile, Rios has been taken to a free clinic, bonds with his hot doctor and her son, then tries to help Hot Doc when ICE shows up. He gets arrested, and his comm badge gets left behind in the clinic. What sort of butterflies will that affect? We will have to find out next time.
Ah, yes, very good. We will indeed. Okay, so moving straight into the next bit, let's make it so. Okay, so this is the portion of the show where we talk about just some of the credits, just some of the credit highlights from this week's episode. So in terms of writing, once again, Akiva Goldsman. Sorry, we're live. I've got it wrong. Akiva Goldsman, Terry Matalis, and Christopher Monfetti from last week. All are involved in the story of this, along with writer Kylie Rossiter. Now, Kylie has not been quoted before in the writing. She is part of the writing room. I've got a little picture of her there for those of you watching us on YouTube. But if not, if you're listening to us on the airways, she's involved in Picard. Prior to that, she had been a writer on a show called Pocket Watch Challenge Squad. Don't know anything about that. And I'd done some assistant director and production manager work on short films prior to that. So I get the impression that Picard is a fairly new gig for her, but this is great. You know, I'm always loving to see new talent and whatever get brought into the industry, because my God, we need it. And this episode, a different director for this episode, and I'm, was surprised, but also delighted to see that it was directed by Leah Thompson. Now, big fan of Leah Thompson. Obviously, she plays Lorraine Baines McFly in the Back to the Future trilogy. That's probably the thing she's best known as. But, she's been in the industry as an actor for some years, going way back, as I said, to the 80s, right up to present day. And it's quite nice to see her directing, kind of following, I guess, in the footsteps when we talk about Star Wars of, Bryce Dallas Howard, for The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and whatever. I was looking back over her directing credits, and she has previously directed TV, pretty much TV exclusively. So she's done some Young Sheldon, American Housewife, Switched at Birth, The Goldbergs, 3 episodes of Stargirl, and a couple of episodes of Resident Alien, which is a really fun show. If anybody's not checked that out yet, I would highly recommend it. So, but of course, obviously, who better to direct an episode of Star Trek Picard that deals with time travel than Leah Thompson herself? So yeah, good to see her have the reins for this. And then notable guest stars, and I'm glad that you referred to her as the Hot Doctor before I did, Pete. Was Actress Sol Rodriguez, who plays Dr. Teresa Ramirez in this episode, features quite strongly. And just looking, there's some credits here, the usual TV stuff, NCIS, what else have we got? Dead Girls Detective Agency, Party of Five. So some TV credits here, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of Dr. Teresa in upcoming episodes of Picard, if the way this one was left has anything to say. So there you go, a quick overview of some of our key credits for this episode. What do you think about all that then, Pete?
So I did see Leah Thompson's name in the credits, and I got to be honest, all I could think was, oh, there's somebody else named Leah Thompson.
No, it's the Leah Thompson. Yeah,
that is astounding to me, but great. Love to see it. I for sure was like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Star Trek is it's been one of the, if you like, pioneers going back to Next Gen and Voyager and DS9 that would it would take actors and put them through that director training program. Obviously, massive success with like Jonathan Frakes and Roxanne Dawson and a number of others.
LeVar Burton.
Yeah, LeVar Burton. I was going to say, the list goes on, and it as I said, it's great to see Leah Thompson in this. So, okay, well, that's a lot of talking as usual, but I think it's time for some tea. Earl Grey, hot. Okay, so this is where we talk about references, connections, Easter eggs, etc., etc. Were there any obvious ones that jumped out to you, Pete?
Okay, so I have two, and then a third that's more of a nitpick. The first one that I got is not a Star Trek connection, but it is a reference. When the Borg Queen wakes up, I think she quotes from the Wizard of Oz. And I don't remember exactly what she said. I just wrote down Wizard of Oz quote here, when the Borg Queen wakes up. But I think she says something about like, I had a dream and you were there and you were there. And that's Wizard of Oz. At one point, Picard says that they're going home, but he doesn't, they don't say where they are. So my thought was that they crashed in France, but I don't know exactly what that is.
Yeah, they didn't make that very clear, but I've only seen it the once, but I think that was what they did. They crashed at the vineyard in France, and then they transported to
Los Angeles.
Yeah,
like you do.
Which you would if you had that technology, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then there is a reference to how long it takes to assimilate someone, but I think that's actually a nitpick for me, because they say it takes hours to assimilate a new mind, but not according to First Contact, right? I mean, it did not take anywhere near hours to assimilate those people into the collective. So that was annoying for me. But yeah, that's what I saw.
Loose and fast. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I got this episode, I'm not sure if I how many I spotted. I mean, of course, there's the obvious time travel references, as we mentioned previously, to the likes of Voyage Home and Future's End. So Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, and Future's End, the Voyager episode. Specifically, Voyager goes back, I believe, to California of the 1990s in that episode. So there was that kind of usual fish out of water stuff going on there. A more, I think, relevant reference, though, is this is kind of connecting with Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine had a two-part episode in '95 called Past Tense, and in that one, Bashir, Sisko, and Dax go back to 2024, which at the time was 30 years into the future, but obviously only two now. But and they go back to and they basically instigate an episode in history, in Earth history at that point, known as the Bell Riots. And that takes place in September of 2024. So I'm assuming that these guys have landed sometime earlier in 2024. I wonder whether there will be a reference. We do see that Raffi is in the Sanctuary District, and there is a sign saying that, which is, again, lines up with what they did in Deep Space Nine with Past Tense. And they mention the UHC ID card, which Rios gets asked about in this episode, and Bashir and Sisko get asked about in that DS9 episode. So I don't know whether this is intentional, whether they're trying to link it in with stuff that's already been established in other Star Trek. But if they are, then my hat's off to the writers for picking up on that and doing so. But I noticed that. The other thing I've again, if you're watching on YouTube, I've put a picture of a ship there in the bottom left-hand corner. And the reason I've done that is I believe that this is the Jupiter, the Nova class vessel, which the Equinox was, which was a two-part episode of Star Trek Voyager called Equinox, however you're supposed to pronounce it. And it was about another ship, another Federation ship that had got lost in the Delta Quadrant, but weren't following the Prime Directive in the way that Janeway and her crew were. And I noticed that one of the vessels that pursues them when they have the shootout at the beginning looked like it was indeed that class of vessel. So I'm not an absolute aficionado on Star Trek vehicles like some people are, but I believe I'm right with that. Notes in the comments if I've got that wrong. And then the only other thing I've got here was we see a poster for the Europa Jupiter mission with the logo "To Boldly Go," which of course is the most obvious Star Trek reference, right? So
I could tell that poster was back there, and I could not tell what it was. I saw the words Europa, and I was like, I can't tell if they're.
We're going to be traveling to Jupiter in the next 2 years, then apparently, if Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson and those guys have anything to do with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that was. I'm pretty certain that was everything that I managed to pick up on there. But,
well, as per usual, stellar work.
Well, no, it's just trying to be observant. But let's before we get into our thoughts on it, let's just have a quick look at. I think this one will be short this week, but some speculation with there are 4 lights. So, Pete, I don't know whether you've got anything specific.
Okay, yeah, I do. I know that in previous last week I said that Guinan would be the Watcher.
Yes.
And watching it this time, I went, oh, wait a second. What if Brent Spiner's character is the Watcher? What if it's assumed?
Okay, interesting.
And so I don't know. I keep going back and forth on that one. I actually think that maybe what we'll see is that Guinan is the Watcher, but that the thing that changes is with assume descendant, or not ancestor, not descendant. So yeah, that's like the one that I'm interested in. And then my uninterested one is that obviously Raffi is going to come back when the timelines straighten out.
You
Which,
mean Elnor, right?
oh, sorry, I do mean Elnor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
I just think of it that way because they're giving Raffi a lot of scenery to chew on in these bits, and I'm not enjoying it, but I guess that's the wrong section. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, interesting. That's a really inspired point you've made, actually, about Brent Spiner, because I hadn't considered that. And obviously, they do like to get Brent Spiner in Star Trek as much as they can. He was obviously in season 1 of Picard. And we have obviously in Enterprise and whatever, see him play one of his ancestors. Yeah. You know, one of his earlier family line in that excellent episode arc that they had in season 4 of Star Trek Enterprise. And then, of course, he's played Noonien Sung, hasn't he? His Data's creator and stuff before in Next Gen. And yeah, that's quite intriguing, actually, whether he would be in this. So yeah, nice one. I like that.
He has been in it.
Oh yes, he was an Easter egg, wasn't he?
He was an Easter egg, but I think that Easter egg is pointing to him coming back.
Right. It was more of a foreshadowing, maybe. Yeah.
And the way that they did it, right? Because he was a statue there.
Yeah. Well, again, this was one you picked up on, and I didn't last time. But yes, that is correct. So
yeah.
Interesting. The whole thing with Elnor, yeah, I'm kind of like, you know, in one part it would be really bold for them to kill off a main character. Especially this early on. But likewise, you know, there is that thing that you know, with time travel, that it might correct itself. It depends, because they're going with the kind of temporal causality time travel rules in Star Trek, which is obviously like different to the time travel rules in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example. So but it depends, like if Elnor is going to be like an Edith Keeler type character from the original series, where, you know, he has to die, but the difference is he's already come from the future, whereas Edith Keeler was obviously already there, wasn't she? So I don't know, time travel, timey-wimey. And also the other thing, of course, is I've put a little picture of the comm badge there, because that has got left at the medical center, hasn't it? So
yes,
whether or not that will become a MacGuffin, or whether that will lead to something. I mean, we had in the voyage home, you know, Klingon phasers and all sorts of stuff were left back, weren't they? You know, and Kirk's reading glasses. But who knows? I don't really have much speculation here this time. So, okay, I think we should draw a line then and move on to our thoughts with the line must be drawn here.
Okay.
You go, Pete. Go for it.
I have a lot of nitpicks.
That's all right.
I have a lot of nitpicks. You know, it's annoying that the Confederation goons disintegrate, but Elnor gets shot with the exact same weapon and bleeds for a while. And I was like that's just like literally Elnor gets shot with somebody's gun. They take that guy's gun away and shoot somebody else. There's no time to change settings. Don't come at me with that crap. They wanted Eleanor to bleed. They wanted Elnor to bleed, and they wanted the Confederates to disintegrate. So that's what they did, and that's annoying.
Yes,
Uh,
I thought that they got out of last week's cliffhanger, way too
yeah,
easily and quickly, and I was kind of disappointed actually that the character played by John Barones,
yeah,
the first magistrate, was dispensed of so quickly because
ridiculously quickly.
they could have done some, and also they I mean, I know we're in a different reality, a darker uh future and all of, or dark, not future, but a darker reality and all of this sort of stuff, but the way they just basically killed everyone, kind of seemed a bit. It took me back a little bit. Actually, I was like, "Oh, okay, they
Like,
just killed them off like that." Then, So yeah.
yeah, they just vaporized people, and apparently you can't even say like, oh well, that was the setting on their guns, right? Because Elnor didn't vaporize. Um, it was it. I was annoyed. Okay.
Mm, yeah, no,
Um,
I agree. I thought the opening of this was, or that part was very weak. Actually, I was
yeah.
kind of like, ugh, it's like they just wanted to move on with the storytelling, and it's like, well, why did you even bother leaving us in a cliffhanger? Then it was purely just so Elnor could get shot, wasn't it? Basically,
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
that was the only.
The
That's
only
all
reason.
that served. Yeah.
And okay, and then other minor nitpick is I don't think funner is a word. Um, it just made me angry that they kept saying it. Uh, uh, yeah. Okay. Those are, and then the nitpick about Borg assimilation. Um, then my bigger problems with the episode is I think, like we just talked about, that the drama feels very manufactured, putting us into a cliffhanger just to shoot our way out of it in the first 30 seconds. The Queen storyline doesn't make sense when you really look at it, because they're saying like, oh, we need her, we need to keep her. Oh no, we got to deactivate her. Oh no, 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 we got to put her in stasis. It's like they're yo-yoing back and forth between these things to create this drama. When I think a more compelling storyline would be about I'll use a bad word here, but assimilation, right?
Mhm.
Like
Hence the title.
The
Yes.
Borg Queen should be assimilated into the crew in this episode, and that would, I think, make a more interesting storyline, a more compelling storyline than this, you know, oh no, how are we going to handle this? Right? Even at the um like with the time jump, when there's a shot where Girardi seems to plug in the Borg Queen, but then in the very, next time you see the Borg Queen, she's escaped her containment field and Girardi's all nervous. And I'm like, well, how does that make any sense? We know what the Borg Queen is there to do. She's there to do the time jump. And so, yeah, plug her in, right? Don't be afraid of her. You're using her. Get her in there. Um, if you want to do the whole thing where the Borg Queen is gonna uh, betray the crew and you have to outthink her, okay, but it you're losing the real effectiveness there because you've manufactured this scary drama around having a Borg Queen on the ship, and so it's so frustrating to me that
Mhm.
they've got good storylines or good story possibilities, and then they take sort of these cheap manufactured ways out of it.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but
No, 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 it's
the
fine.
just to finish out my notes here, like Girardi's humor, I feel is very much the same. The whole scene with her going under, where she's just yo-yoing between emotions and funny lines, and I'm like, this is very strange for me. I don't get it. Um, I don't like it. I don't get it. I think that there's so much more we could be doing here. And then, not to be entirely negative, I will say that I did really like the Rios and Teresa storyline, and that I found compelling. And so I'm looking forward to more of that storyline. I think that they handled it pretty well, if albeit fairly stereotypically, right? Like, but so they definitely played some stereotypes up, right? Like hot doctor with a son, and
Yeah.
letting a patient just wander around your free clinic. No, but anyway, I liked it. I thought it was fine, and I'd like to see more of it. But
Yeah.
all in all, it was a very mixed bag.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, I'll agree. It was. I mean, I was. I'm not going to lie. I was entertained by this episode.
Hmm.
I think the things that it does suffer are more down to writing, because I know whether I'm being a little biased about Leah Thompson, but I actually, I actually thought that the episode was quite well directed. Actually, I like the fact that when they did the slingshot, they handled that in a very similar manner to how Leonard Nimoy handled it in Star Trek: The Voyage Home.
Yeah.
Uh, and I like that from a in terms of a reference and a piece of continuity, if you like. That worked for me. It's interesting you say about the Dorati being plugged into the Borg Queen, because I felt with that was almost for any aspiring actresses out there, that was almost like a perfect monologue piece.
Oh,
Just because it goes to so many different places in the point of a contained short
yeah.
monologue. And Alison Peel kills it in terms of she's really good at that, but obviously they play to her strengths. They do like her being Mrs. One Liner and all of that stuff. And yeah, I think we talked about this last time, how the vernacular for this show feels very modern, and it doesn't necessarily feel like Star Trek sometimes, with this snarkiness and comments and all of that sort of thing. But do you know what I mean? You know what I
Oh,
mean? Yeah.
yeah. I just thought, like, you're right. In this Star Trek, there was no getting used to four-letter words in the 21st century.
Yes.
They
Colorful
already had
metaphors.
they
Yes,
yes, they had all full ability to use colorful metaphors as
they
soon
do.
as they touch down. Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah.
and it's funny. I got a few pictures. You know, the more exciting ones, because I was struggling to find stuff to put this together. Online this time, because I suppose one can argue that not a lot happens in some respects. It's a little bit tready water. Uh, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we've got
An
this.
episode where a major character dies, not a lot happens.
That's yeah. Well, maybe I didn't spot enough. I don't know, but
But no, like that's like my problem with it, is that I think some of these moments felt so manufactured and fake that
mhm.
you tune them out. Um and then you are left with oh, not a lot happened in this episode. But that's, I think in a different script that highlighted different things, we would feel very differently, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Um
it's a shame that so far we don't know what's going to happen next week, obviously, but so far only the three of them have actually ventured out into contemporary or 2024 Los Angeles. Obviously, Seven and Raffi,
yeah.
and also, of course, Rios. I'm assuming that was some sort of transporter malfunction, by the way, that made him materialize. I
Yeah.
know, so he had to be in a hospital, but I suppose one could put that down to the fact that the ship was somewhat damaged because of the battle or
I
something.
think they tried to write it off as more, power issues.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and again, I just felt like that was manufactured, right? I do hear you talking about how that calls back to the voyage home time travel, and so I am now thinking of it more in that light. And I think, yeah, you know what, you're right. That is sort of a callback to voyage home, right, where the ship doing the time travel really messed with the power relays.
Well, yeah,
But
it's actually funny because obviously they went in the voyage home. It wasn't a Starfleet ship. It was, the Klingon bird of prey that they renamed SS
yeah,
Bounty and went back. And of course, in this one, we commented last week that it was odd that Rios was just piloting,
La
his
Serena, yeah,
La Serena, yeah, rather than a Starfleet vessel, or sorry, a Confederation vessel, as it would be in this case. But yeah, it's yeah. So they've got a smaller vessel that
it's
they're
weird.
working from, but yeah, and it's almost like, they had the sets from last season. Again, the cynic in me.
Oh no, that's entirely what it was. They
Yeah,
already had the sets,
yeah.
and yeah,
That's,
it's dumb.
yeah, but I
So
mean, it was. I found it a fun episode. I obviously, I like the Hot Doctor as well, obviously, and I agree. I thought that kind of uh, the chemistry with Rios and that side of things was working quite well. Of course, he had to go and get himself arrested, though, didn't he? He had to sort of disobey everything that Picard had told him to do before they set out. But
yeah, but that makes sense with his character,
yes,
right? I was like, I wasn't going to fault them that, because I thought, no, that's how this character that you've set up absolutely would behave in this situation,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
he left Starfleet because he felt like Starfleet wasn't following its honor bound duty. He absolutely would try and step up and fight against injustice in today's world.
yeah,
Um, or let me say it is in any timeline that he jumped into. And
yeah.
so I thought it was great.
Yeah,
Um,
and I honestly think that the little references to Deep Space Nine's past tense, the what am I trying to say? The Sanctuary District and everything. I think that was just literally put in there as a little bit of a nod. I don't think that's necessarily going to, feature in the storyline, or I don't feel it will. I think it would be great if it did, but I don't. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know where they're going with this. We'll see, I guess. But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't think it was a terrible episode. But things are happening quicker than I thought they were. I don't know how many episodes we've got in this
Oh yeah, I
season,
don't know either.
but um,
Maybe 10, I would think, right?
yeah,
Around there.
maybe
I mean, we're
they
not
don't.
getting 20.
Yeah, but yeah, and of course, it's different for new Star Trek as well. Is this more serialized storytelling as opposed to episodic, which apparently Strange New Worlds is going to be more episodic, but we'll get there, I
Good.
guess. But yeah,
Okay, so initial reports say that Picard season 2 is going to be 10 episodes.
okay,
So we are almost, well, we're a third of the way.
third way through, yeah, yeah,
And yeah, what I'll say is that, I watched episodes 1 and 2 3 or 4 times each. And this one I forced myself to watch a second time, so that I could take better notes for this show. But
right.
otherwise, I would not have gone back. Yeah.
I must admit, I've not seen any of this season more than once so far,
Huh.
just because, I mean, there's such a wealth of stuff to watch
Yeah.
at the moment that I'm finding it difficult to fit everything in. So the multi-watch is becoming a thing of the past for me, I'm afraid. It's kind of something I always used to do, but all it means is I'll remember it less, sadly. But
Have you, off-topic question here, but have you gone back and rewatched Picard season 1 or no?
I have not, no. In fact, funny enough, I'm thinking about, obviously the channel is Home Media Minefield, and I've been wondering whether to tie in a review of the physical media Blu-ray release of Picard season 1, which has been available for some time now. And because it's got quite a lot of special features and commentaries and stuff on it. So, but before I listen to a commentary, I would have to revisit the episode anyway. So yes, I may go back and revisit at some point for the purpose of the channel more than anything. But yeah.
I rewatched the parts of Picard season 1 that I liked, so I went back and watched the first couple episodes again. But then I was like, this, and then I don't like where it goes, so I stopped. But yeah.
Well, hopefully this won't be history repeating itself with this season. I'm hoping.
Well, I liked Picard's episodes 1, 2, and 3, season 1, and like with season 2, I kind of liked episode 2, but I still
you weren't a fan of this one though. No,
not a fan of this one. Or yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm intrigued. It's doing what it needs to do in terms of. I'm intrigued to see more. I want to know where what's going to happen next. So I suppose that's something. But
yeah.
But yeah.
And I still got to say, any day where I get to watch a new episode of Star Trek is a good day.
Okay. Well, let's on that note then, because I haven't got much more to say about this. But for this season, we're doing a new rank pin rating system. So how many pips or what rank are you going to give this week's episode then?
I'm gonna keep it steady. This is a lieutenant. That's what I think I rated episode 1 lieutenant commander, episode 2 lieutenant, episode 3 is still a lieutenant. There's some good stuff in here, but it's got a ways to go.
Okay.
This is a Lieutenant Malcolm Reed. There you go.
A Malcolm Reed. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with. I'm going to be slightly more generous. I'm going to go with a lieutenant commander on this, because I think I can't remember what I did, commander or lieutenant commander last week. I know I gave the first episode.
You gave it a commander.
Did I give it a commander? Oh dear. Then they're going lower each episode. So
yeah,
lieutenant commander this week. But I enjoyed it for the most part, but yeah, I hated the opening. I will say that I did not like the way out of last week's episode, and it almost, we talked about Leah Thompson directing. It almost felt like she was given that from last week and had to get herself out of it so she could start directing her episode, if you know what I mean. And I wasn't liking it at all. And then after the beginning credits was when I sort of started getting into it. And I enjoy, I like the fish out of water element. I do like those story beats, and I've always liked Star Trek when it's done that. I remember being bothered when back when Voyager was out and that Future's End episode, I was bothered at the time because I was like, well, hold on, isn't
how
this
did they get
the eugenic wars and all of this sort of stuff, and it just felt like another cheap episode to go and shoot out on location rather than on the built sets. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, okay, I think unless you've got anything to add, we're done. Yeah, so let's just open a channel.
All right, that brings this episode to an end for another week. I've been Pete Neely. You can find me on Twitter at Too Many E's, TOOMANYEES. Keith, where can people find more of you and your work?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great that you're on this channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, Home Media Minefield, so check out more of that. If you're listening to us on a podcast, then please check out the YouTube channel Home Media Minefield. You can also follow us here at LSWOTcast. And if you want to see my more creative work, if you go to British Isles, that's EYLES on YouTube, that's my last name, you'll find some short films that I've made, which you can check out there.
Yeah. And like he said, you can get in touch or follow Let's See What's Out There on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at LSWOTcast, or you can send us an email directly at lswotcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Picard Season 2. You can find this podcast and related material on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or any good podcasting app. Please do remember to share, like, and give us a brief review, as that all helps. Great.
Yep, and that just leaves us to thank Neil Myers for our theme music. You can find more of Neil's work at neilmyersmusic.com, and William McLaughlin for our logo. If you want to hear more from William, recent episodes that we've had on this channel is we've had an episode that was covering Fright Fest Glasgow, which was a couple of weeks ago now, where William joined me along with producer Natasha Marburger. And we talked about in a time when horror's everywhere at the moment. There's things like Fresh on streaming and X at the cinema at the moment. But at Fright Fest, we talk about some of the, if you like, lesser known films that are coming out on streaming in the near future. So check out that episode. We've also got an episode, if you're into the Batman superhero stuff, we had a live stream where we were talking about that also on this channel. So but yeah, that just leads me to thank Pete, and we will speak to you next time on Let's See What's Out There. Bye for now.